body was found is now marked by a police tent. It's about 50 yards from the main road here. This is an area known locally as a nature reserve. It's just next to a private housing estate. The woods themselves are popular with joggers and dog walkers.
One night, one stranger, and a decision that would change everything. Kate Beagley wasn't reckless. She was smart, careful. The kind of person who always played it safe. But within 24 hours of meeting someone new, she vanished. No trace, no warning. Just silence and a chilling trail that led to something no one was prepared for. This isn't just a true crime story. It's a haunting reminder of how quickly normal can turn into nightmare, and how danger doesn't always come with a warning sign. This is the story of Kate Beagley, and once you hear it, you won't forget it. Her name was Kate Beagley, 32 years old. A kind-hearted woman working in corporate management for a utilities company in London. Intelligent, responsible, beloved by her friends and respected by her colleagues. She wasn't the type of person to seek danger. In fact, she was cautious, thoughtful. She lived a quiet life, the kind of person who didn't take risks, which is why when she went missing in May of 2007, it sent shockwaves through everyone who knew her. The day before she disappeared, Kate was on a night out in Richmond, West London. It was the kind of casual evening many of us have had. Drinks with friends, laughter, nothing unusual. That night she was meeting someone new, a man she'd apparently met only days before. His name was Carl Taylor, a 27-year-old with a long criminal record, theft, robbery, aggression. But Kate didn't know that. To her, he was just a stranger with charm. They planned to meet at a pub and then drive to a scenic spot by the Thames Sound. Romantic maybe, but this wasn't a date that ended with a goodnight kiss. Kate never made it home. The next morning, her phone was off. Her car was gone. No word from her. Her parents, who she was extremely close to, grew worried almost immediately. Kate wasn't the kind to disappear. They reported her missing within hours, and the police took it seriously. Now here's where things started to move quickly. Investigators traced Kate's last known movements. CCTV footage placed her with Carl Taylor. They were seen together, first in the pub, then leaving, then later near Richmond Hill. What happened next wasn't caught on camera, but what was discovered later painted a picture darker than anyone expected. Police found her car abandoned. Bloodstains inside DNA confirmed it was Kate's. The vehicle became a crime scene. Her bank card had been used after her disappearance, withdrawals made from machines across London. All by a man matching Carl Taylor's description. Within days, police arrested him. Now imagine this, during the interrogation. Taylor spun a story. He claimed Kate had taken him on a scenic drive. They'd gone to a lookout point, talked, then according to him, something just happened. He said he didn't mean for things to go wrong, that he panicked. But it didn't add up. He gave no clear motive. No explanation, just vague answers. When asked where Kate was, he refused to say. Days passed, the media picked up the case. Headlines, pleas from her family. The public was gripped. How could a woman vanish so completely in a city filled with people and cameras? Then the twist. Carl Taylor led police to a remote wooded area in Hertfordshire. And there, hidden beneath a pile of leaves and branches, they found Kate's body. She had been attacked violently, repeatedly. There was no doubt this was no accident. This was premeditated, but why? What had Kate done to deserve this? And who really was Carl Taylor? A stranger with a smile, or something much darker? And as the trial loomed deeper, questions began to rise. The courtroom was silent the day Carl Taylor stood trial. He appeared calm, composed, even as though none of this had anything to do with him. But behind that stillness was a man on the brink. The prosecution wasted no time. They laid out the facts. Taylor had met Kate by chance just days before the murder. He had no job, no money, no stable housing. What he did have was a history, a pattern of unpredictable behavior, violence and manipulation. They argued that he targeted Kate not for love or companionship, but as an opportunity. A woman with a car, a bank card, trusting a loan. The jury listened closely as the prosecution painted a chilling timeline. After Kate picked him up that evening, they drove to Richmond Hill, a known beauty spot. But instead of enjoying the view, Taylor brought a knife. He attacked Kate with such force it left over 30 wounds. It wasn't a struggle, it was an execution. Afterward, he drove her lifeless body across counties, finally leaving her in a secluded area of woods. Not buried, just hidden. Then he used her bank card to withdraw money to buy fast food and clothes. That detail stuck with people. The image of a man so detached, so cold, that after taking a life, he bought himself a meal. Like nothing had happened, but the defense had a different story. They claimed Taylor was under stress, that he never intended to kill, that he didn't plan anything in advance. He panicked. He lost control. They pointed to his troubled background, his childhood, his mental state. But for many watching, it wasn't convincing. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, DNA. The timeline, witnesses, even Taylor's own statements changed repeatedly. At one point, he even claimed Kate had come at him first, a claim the court found implausible. Kate's friends testified to her character, her kindness, her caution. One friend said, Kate would never pick up someone she didn't feel safe around. Which raised another disturbing thought. Did Taylor pretend to be someone else that night? Was it all an act? The jury deliberated for hours. When the verdict came, it was unanimous, guilty. Carl Taylor was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 30 years. But for Kate's family, the sentence didn't bring closure. Nothing could. Her father spoke to reporters outside the courtroom, his voice shaking. He said, "No punishment will ever be enough. We lost a daughter, a light in our lives, and yet the public still had questions. How did this happen so quickly? Could it have been prevented? Why did Kate go with him at all?" Some speculated that Taylor had a manipulative charm, that he presented himself as someone different. Others suggested he may have followed Kate for longer than anyone knew. But no concrete evidence ever proved stalking. What was clear was that the justice system had moved fast. From the moment she was reported missing, police launched a full-scale investigation. They pulled CCTV from local businesses, analyzed phone records, tracked her car's last movements. And when they identified Taylor, they didn't hesitate. His prior record raised red flags. They interviewed witnesses, traced card transactions, collected forensic evidence. In less than a week, they had a suspect in custody, and yet the speed of justice didn't erase the horror of what had happened. It didn't answer the most haunting question of all. Why Kate? She was not reckless, not naive, but sometimes all it takes is one wrong turn, one wrong person, and everything changes. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning, a reminder of how fragile safety can be, especially when danger wears a friendly face. After the verdict, public reaction was intense. People across the UK followed every detail of the case. It wasn't just about Kate anymore. It became a symbol of a deeper fear, how easily violence could hide in plain sight. Talk shows debated it. Newspapers ran headlines for weeks. Social media exploded with theories. Some people blamed dating culture. Others questioned why someone with Taylor's background was even walking free. He had prior convictions, serious ones. So how was he able to meet someone new and carry out something this brutal without raising alarm? The system came under fire, not just the justice system, but society as a whole. Could this have been prevented? Were there missed signs? These were the questions no one could answer definitively. Theories began to spread. Some suggested Taylor didn't choose Kate randomly, that he had been watching her, tracking her movements, that perhaps this wasn't a spontaneous crime at all, but a plan, an obsession, a long buildup that no one noticed. The police never confirmed that theory, but they didn't rule it out either. Others believed Taylor had done this before, that Kate wasn't the first. Just the first they could prove. Again, no evidence ever surfaced to support it. But once a story like this grips the public, the lines between fact and fear start to blur. The media focused heavily on Kate's final hours. What was she thinking when she picked him up? Did she sense something was wrong? Could she have fought back? These questions are impossible to answer, but they haunted everyone who followed the story, especially women. Forums and blogs lit up with personal stories. Women sharing times they'd ignored red flags, times they'd been lucky. The case changed the way people talked about safety and trust, and the subtle decisions we make every day without even realizing they could be dangerous. But for Kate's family, all of that media attention was like salt in the wound. They described the months following the trial as surreal. Their daughter's face was everywhere, her story dissected by strangers, her name turned into a headline. And yet amid all the noise, some good quietly emerged. A foundation was created in Kate's name, focused on supporting women's safety, providing resources, education, creating awareness about manipulative behavior and personal risk. It wasn't justice, it wasn't healing, but it was something. A way to push forward when everything felt broken. Meanwhile, Carl Taylor remained silent in prison. No public apology, no explanation. He faded from the headline. Forgotten by most, but not by everyone. Some journalists tried to interview him, tried to get answers, but he refused. Locked away in a maximum security facility. Taylor became just another name in a long line of violent offenders. But Kate's name stayed, etched in memory. In the story, in the caution people began to carry with them. What makes this case so chilling isn't just the crime itself. It's the normalcy of it all. A sunny day, a friendly face, a drive to a beautiful hilltop. No warnings, no screaming headlines. Just one woman doing what so many of us do, taking a chance, trusting, hoping for connection, and paying the ultimate price. That's what makes this story unforgettable. Because it could have been anyone, and that realization is what keeps it alive in people's minds. Not just as a crime, but as a moment where everything safe cracked open. The investigation itself was a race against time. From the very beginning, detectives knew they were working against the clock. Missing person cases are always urgent, but this one had an eerie feel. There were no signs of Kate after that night. No phone activity, no credit card use until Carl Taylor used it. That was the breakthrough. Police tracked his spending patterns. He wasn't careful. He didn't try to hide. He withdrew cash in public spaces, ate at fast food places, bought items that were easily traced. Investigators quickly connected the dots. Every transaction narrowed their search. Every camera told another part of the story. And then there was the forensic evidence. Inside Kate's abandoned car, they found blood too much to suggest she was still alive. Her fingerprints, his fingerprints, her hair, his shoe prints, all of it combined into a chilling timeline. And yet what truly accelerated the case was the psychological profile police brought in behavioral analysts, experts who studied Taylor's past, his actions, his choices after the crime. They noted how calm he seemed, how methodical. This wasn't panic, this was cold calculation. He didn't run. He stayed in London, kept using Kate's belongings as if he believed he wouldn't get caught or maybe didn't care. Either way, it gave investigators a clear strategy. They applied pressure, public appeals, press conferences. They released CCTV stills, encouraged witnesses to come forward, and people did. Small tips. A cashier remembered seeing Taylor. A bus driver noticed him near a stop the night of the disappearance. Each clue was a thread. Together they formed a noose, and then came the moment no one expected. Taylor confessed, not everything, not in detail, but enough to lead police to Kate's body. That moment was the emotional breaking point for her family, for the public, for the officers who had worked day and night to find her. It was the confirmation everyone feared but needed. The case had officially become a murder investigation. Forensics examined the scene. They documented the shallow attempt to conceal the body, the leaves, the branches, the isolation of the area. It was a calculated spot just far enough to delay discovery, but not too far for Taylor to reach easily. That was another detail that unsettled detectives. The choice of location, it suggested planning, familiarity. And once again, that chilling question resurfaced. Had he done this before? No evidence ever confirmed it. But doubts lingered. The Crown Prosecution Service moved swiftly, with the physical evidence, Taylor's confession, and the witness statements. The case was strong, but they knew they'd have to dismantle any narrative from the defense, suggesting spontaneity or remorse. That's why the trial focused so heavily on intention, on Taylor's behavior before and after, his lack of empathy, his casual use of Kate's belongings. The prosecution's lead barrister was relentless. She painted a portrait of a man who saw people as tools, a user, a taker. She used his criminal record to support this image, not just as a backdrop, but as a pattern, and the jury believed it. They saw through the defense's attempts to blur the story, to make it a tragedy of circumstance instead of a brutal choice. One juror later told a reporter off the record, it wasn't just what he did. It was how little he seemed to care. That coldness stayed with them. It stays with everyone who hears this story. Because sometimes the most terrifying people aren't the ones who scream. They're the ones who smile, who wait, who watch, and then strike when no one expects it. There was one part of the case that never made headlines, but it gripped everyone who worked it. The letters. During the early part of his custody, Carl Taylor wrote several notes, scribbled pages, mostly incoherent. But hidden in the rambling were phrases, statements, pieces that suggested something more twisted than what had already been revealed. She wasn't supposed to scream. It went wrong too fast. I thought she'd listen. These weren't confessions in the legal sense, but they were insights into a fractured mind. Investigators weren't sure if the letters were written for attention or if they were genuine slips of truth. But they showed something undeniable. Taylor didn't see Kate as a person. He saw her as a problem. A challenge, something to be handled, not someone to be respected. It added another dark layer to the case. Psychologists later reviewed the material and suggested traits linked to narcissistic disorder and possible sociopathy. Again, none of this changed the legal outcome, but it changed the understanding of who he was, and that's something the public never truly saw. In the media, Taylor was often described as a drifter, a petty criminal who snapped, but behind the scenes, professionals saw someone who'd been building toward this for years. Not an explosion of rage, but a controlled burn. That's what still disturbs the lead detective even now. He once said in an interview there was no loss of control. He was always in control. That's what made it worse. Meanwhile, Kate's friends tried to reclaim her story. They organized community events in her honor, quiet walks, fundraisers. They didn't want her to be remembered just as a victim. They wanted people to know who she really was, kind, sharp, full of warmth. One friend wrote Kate was the kind of person who made you feel safe. Isn't it cruel how the world works sometimes? The tragedy had ripple effects far beyond her circle. Women across the country shared new habits. Some stopped going on solo dates. Others began sharing live locations with friends. The case became part of a wider conversation. How do you stay safe in a world where danger often looks polite? Podcasts revisited the story. Documentaries followed. But still, one question refused to die. Was this a case of failed systems or just a perfect storm? Should Carl Taylor have been flagged earlier? Should there have been safeguards? Some argued for stricter background checks on dating apps and social settings. Others said evil can't always be predicted. It can only be responded to. But one thing is certain. This wasn't random. It was the outcome of a man who made choices and a woman who simply wanted to meet someone. The horror lies in how ordinary it all began, and how quickly it turned into something final. That's the essence of the Kate Beagley case. Not just the brutality, but the contrast, the everyday meeting, the unthinkable, and the silence that follows when a life so bright is suddenly gone. As the story winds down, it's not the courtroom scenes or media frenzy that stay with you. It's the quiet details, her text messages, her plans for the weekend, the outfit she picked that day, all reminders that Kate was real, human loved, and her story deserves more than just to be feared. It deserves to be remembered. As the years passed, the story of Kate Beagley faded from the headlines, but it never faded from the minds of those who lived through it. Her family, her friends, the investigators, the jurors. Each one carried something from the case, a memory, a question, a scar. In quiet interviews long after the trial, one of the officers who first responded to the scene where Kate's car was found said something that still lingers. The silence inside that car. It wasn't just physical. It felt like the world had shifted, like innocence had left the room. It's a powerful image because this case wasn't just about the loss of a life. It was about the loss of certainty. That illusion we all carry, that as long as we stay smart, stay alert, stay in familiar places, we'll be safe. Kate did everything right. She met in public. She drove her own car. She was cautious, but even that wasn't enough. That's what terrifies people. The unpredictability, the randomness that wasn't really random. You see, Carl Taylor didn't wake up one morning and suddenly become dangerous. His history showed a man spiraling, but without a major conviction for violence, he remained under the radar. That gap between suspicion and action is where tragedies like this grow. And maybe that's why Kate's story continues to echo in small but lasting ways. Police departments across the UK quietly reviewed how they handle missing adult cases after what happened. Some implemented faster digital tracking protocols, others improved coordination between jurisdictions. It wasn't headline news, but it mattered. Because change, even small, can save someone else. In the world of true crime, there's always a temptation to make monsters out of perpetrators, to turn them into something bigger than human. But in this story, the opposite is true. Carl Taylor wasn't a monster. He was a man, a deeply broken, dangerous man, but human nonetheless. And that's more frightening, because it means he could be anyone. Someone you pass on the street, someone you share a drink with, someone who laughs at your jokes. That's why Kate's story holds people. It forces you to look closer, to reconsider the people around you, the assumptions you make, the gut feelings you ignore. But it also forces us to think about legacy. Kate didn't get to choose how her story ended, but her loved ones chose how it continued. In the years since her death, the foundation in her name has helped dozens of women gain access to counseling support services and educational resources. They've partnered with schools, with charities, with law enforcement. They teach people how to recognize signs of manipulation, how to set boundaries, how to trust their instincts. It's not enough. It never will be. But it's something her father once said in an interview. We won't ever move on, but we move forward, because that's what Kate would have done. That kind of grace is rare. And maybe that's the final truth this story offers. Not about crime or justice, but about resilience. About what families do in the face of unspeakable loss. About how love doesn't disappear, even when the person does. It just changes shape, turns into action. Legacy memory, so now you know the story of Kate Beagley, a woman who deserved more time, a future, a life not defined by her final moments. She was more than a headline, more than a victim. She was someone real. And now that you've heard her story, a part of her stays with you too. Maybe next time you're walking alone, or meeting someone new, or hearing that quiet little voice in the back of your mind, you'll remember Kate, and you'll listen. Because stories like hers aren't just about the past, they're warnings. And sometimes, they're the only thing standing between what is and what could have been.